Welcome, Algebra 1. This is section 6-3, Solving Systems by Elimination. The essential question is, what are the steps you will take to solve systems by elimination? Let's begin. So, out of the three ways to solve a system, this is the last one we're talking about, the elimination method. Done the last two in the previous videos. This method it's kind of tricky a little bit. So, the steps for this is, I see it as three steps. Adding or subtracting equation so that one variable eliminates, solve for the remaining variable, then substitute to find the other variable. So the key thing here is that we have to, what elimination method means is when we subtract or add two equations, it eliminates a variable. I should have put that down there. The whole point is adding or subtracting eliminates a variable. So that means like one of them goes away, so you're only left with one other variable left, and it's easy to solve a one variable equation. So, and the first part of here is where there's going to be a lot of trouble. How do I add and subtract? Because it's not always simple, because you have to make a few choices. Which variable do you want to eliminate? And do you have to multiply one of the equations first, or do you have to multiply both? Do you add or do you subtract? So there's a lot of choices, a lot of things you have to think about here. So, and there's also more than one way to eliminate. You don't have to eliminate everything the way I do it. You can go with different approaches. You can choose different variables. So this takes a lot of thinking, but I think I broke this down for you. Just follow me along with this video and see if you get this, and we'll talk more in class. So the first step, there's 4 things I go on my checklist when I'm trying to eliminate. And this is how I think of this. I first see if I can add the equations and it eliminates. Then I see if I can subtract the equations and it eliminates. Then if that doesn't work, I see if I have to multiply one equation first. I say an equation. This could be like one equation. Then add. And then if that doesn't work, I have to just multiply both equations by something, then add them together. So what does that mean? Let's break each of those down. So these should be really nice in your notes. Very clear what these steps are. First step, adding equations. What does this mean? If you add the equations, a variable eliminates. And I'm going to do an example right here. So, and this should be in your notes as well. If you add these up, 4x minus 4x comes out to 0 x, so those eliminate. Negative y, which is negative 1y, plus 2y adds up to positive 1y. And the equals drops down. And negative 4 plus 0 is going to be negative 4. So we're left with y equals negative 4. So x eliminates in this case, and all we need to do is just add the equations together. This works when the coefficients of some variable are opposites. So in this case, the coefficients for x were positive 4 and negative 4. So positive 4 and negative 4. When those added together, they added up to 0. So that's what it works. If I see opposite coefficients, like a positive and a negative, same number, I can just add them and it'll eliminate. Okay. Next one, subtraction. So if you subtract the equations, a variable eliminates. What does that mean? Watch what I do here. For this case, I'm going to subtract everything on the bottom. And when you subtract, you subtract that, but you have to flip every sign here. So this goes minus 2x. This becomes minus a negative, minus negative 4y, so plus 4y. And this becomes negative 6. When you subtract, that goes out to 0. That eliminates. Negative 3 plus 4y is 1y. Equals drops down. And 3 minus 6 will be negative 3. So y equals negative 3. In this case, x eliminated again. Now, when can you subtract? When you have coefficients that are the same. So for example, you had both of these were 2. Both the coefficients for the x were 2, so I said, okay, if I subtract one of those equations, 2 minus 2 is 0, so it eliminates. It doesn't always have to be x, it could be y, but it's just been x so far. Okay, that's that one. Then if subtraction doesn't work, always try to multiply an equation or one equation, and then you add them. So this happens if you multiply only one equation, a variable eliminates. When I mean multiply, that means that you're multiplying everything on both sides, like you're multiplying both sides by 2. So everything on both sides. When does this happen? So let's do this example. I can't add or subtract these. I notice here if I multiply the top equation by 2, and the way I note this is I say multiplying by 2 like this. And I want to rewrite this equation. So I'm going to make an arrow going like this. It's going to be 2 times negative 3x. You're distributing the 2 to every term in here. So 2 times negative 3 is minus 6x. 2 times negative 2y is minus 4y, and equals 2 times 2 is going to be positive 4. So now, this equation doesn't matter anymore. It's these two. So if you add those up, you get negative 10x, 4 and negative 4 is 0y, so that eliminates, equals negative 4 plus 4 is going to be 0. So negative 10x equals 0. And then I could solve, divide by negative 10, and I would get x equals 0. So that's how I did that one. I multiplied how to multiply the top, and then I could eliminate. When do you do it this way? Well, when one coefficient is a factor of the other. So 2 is a factor of 4. What does factor means? 2 divides evenly into 4. Because you can do 2, there's 2 times 2, and that equals 4. Those are the factors of 2. So 2 is a factor because you can go 2 and plus another 2 is also 4. So it divides evenly into 4. That's the way you know. Now, what if that method doesn't work? Well, multiply both equations and add. So this is the last option here, if the other 4 didn't work. So you multiply both equations, then a variable eliminates. And you have the key here is, how do you know what to multiply by? So first you have to choose. Which do I want to eliminate? So you choose x or y. And we'll do more of this in class. So I'm going to choose x or y. And usually whatever has the smaller number, so I'm going to choose to eliminate the y's in this case. If I want to eliminate the y's here, okay, so we're going to multiply by the opposite coefficient here. So if this is 3, we want to multiply by the top equation by 3. And then we're going to multiply the bottom equation by 2. But here's the thing. We got to have one of these be negative so that when they add, they eliminate. So I'm going to make this a negative 2. So multiplying both these equations out, I'm going to do the top one first. Distributing this 3 to every term. 3 times 3x is 9x. 3 times 2y is plus 6y. And equals 3 times 0 is going to be 0. Now I'm going to multiply the bottom one. So the bottom one is going to be 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8x. Negative 2 times 3y, which is minus 6y. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So if I add those two equations together, I get 9 minus 8 is 1x, or x. 6y minus 6y cancels. 0 minus 2 is going to be minus 2. Our x is negative 2. That's how that one works. So you have to multiply both equations. And this will just take some practice so you can see what you have to multiply by. So the steps for eliminating, we only did the elimination part, but let's do the rest. So for this example, I want to figure out if I have to add, subtract, or how do I eliminate. I know I have an x and a negative x. Those are opposites. So if I add, the x's will eliminate. X minus x cancels out. Negative y minus 2y is negative 3y. 1 minus 10 is negative 9. So that's the first step. I added to eliminate x. Second step, solve for the remaining variable. So I'm going to divide by negative 3 because I want to solve for y. And that'll cancel out that negative 3. You're left with y equals negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. So that's y. Now, just like I got to solve for the other variable, just like substitution. So I'll take one of these original equations. I don't care which one. I'll do the top one. X minus y equals 1. And I will substitute a 3 for y. So x minus 3 equals 1. So x, I'm going to write that without parentheses now. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And you get x equals 4. So x equals 4, y equals 3. Let's write that as an ordered pair. 4, 3. That's your answer. Now, just like with the other solving system, sometimes you have infinite and no solutions, and it's still the same rules. So if I added these up here, the variables eliminate and the equation is true. In this case, negative 2 minus 2 cancels out, so 0. Y minus y is 0, so we have 0 equals 12 minus 12, 0. So this is true, so we say infinite. Now for the no solutions, if it doesn't make sense. Again, if you add those up, the x's cancel out, the y's will cancel out, so you get 0 equals 9 minus 7 is 2. 0 does not equal true, so we say no solutions. And that's it. Let's try some examples. Pause the video. Okay, so I want to solve this equation. Now, going down my checklist, I can't just add them, and I can't just subtract them. So I see that this is 1y. 1y is a factor of 2, so I'm going to multiply this bottom equation. I'm going to multiply it by negative 2 in this case, and here's why. Since they both are negative, I got to turn one of these into a positive by multiplying it by negative, it will turn into a positive. So I get negative, rewriting this, negative 6x plus 2y equals negative 12. And I'm going to rewrite this blue equation on top up here. I'm going to bring it down again, not changing it. Negative 2x minus 2y equals negative 12. So these don't matter anymore. Now I'm going to add up these two equations, and I get negative 6x minus 2x, negative 8x. 2y minus 2y cancels out, equals negative 12 minus 12 is negative 24. Solving for x, I want to divide by negative 8, and I'm going to get x equals positive 3. So that's 1. Now I got to find y, so I will substitute into one of these equations. I'll just take the top one, negative 2x minus 2y equals negative 12. So I get negative 2x, again, not times x, negative 2 times 3 minus 2y equals negative 12, which is going to be negative 6 minus 2y is negative 12. Add 6 to both sides. What you're going to get here is these will cancel. You get negative 2y equals negative 6. My last step will be to divide by negative 2. And you'll get y equals positive 3. So x equals positive 3, y equals positive 3. The ordered pair is 3, 3. That's your answer. Next one. Pause the video. Okay, going down my checklist. If I add these together, I know the 4's will eliminate. So the x's will eliminate. 4 minus 4 is gone. Oh, y's also eliminate. So we got 0 equals 4 minus 6, negative 2. This is not true, so we say no solutions, because the variable is eliminated and it's not true. Next one, pause the video. Alright, so there's two different ways to do this. I want to do this twice. I want to just show you. Well, I don't want to do it on the same thing. So I'm going to do this one time first. First I can say, well, these are both coefficients of 2, so I can just subtract one of these equations. I'm going to subtract the bottom equation. So if you subtract the bottom, you have to minus negative. That's going to turn to a positive, that'll turn to a negative, and this will be a positive. So when you add those together, you're going to get 5x, those will cancel, and 4 plus 6 is going to be 10. Divide by 5, x equals 2. So if x equals 2, I'm going to substitute to find my y. I'll take the top equation. So it'll be 4 times 2 plus 2y equals 4. So 8 plus 2y equals 4. Subtract 8 on both sides. You get 2y equals negative 4. Divide by 2, and y equals negative 2. So my final answer as an ordered pair is 2, negative 2. Alright, now let's do that differently. What if you didn't want to eliminate, you said, hey, I can multiply this bottom equation by 4 so that the x's eliminate. And you could do this, so there's more than one solution. So it's going to be negative 4x minus 8y equals negative 24. And I'm going to rewrite the top equation, 4x plus 2y equals 4. If you add those up, the x's are going to cancel. It's going to be negative 6y, and it's going to equal negative 20. That's weird. Did I do the math wrong? Yep, this should have been plus. So, oops, I messed up, but I caught my mistake. So that should have been 10y equals 20. And the next step is I will divide by 10. And you will get y equals negative 2. Now we've got to solve for x. I will take any equation. I'll take the top one. 4x plus 2 times negative 2 equals 4. So 4x minus 4 equals 4. I am going to add 4 to both sides. So I get 4x equals 8. Divide by 4, and your x is going to equal 2. So the same answer, just like last time. Even though I solved differently, it's still the same answer, 2, negative 2. So you can solve it in different ways. That's it.